going on, family? What's going on? Listen, I wanted to make sure that I make good as promised, to make sure that I bring you this Lions Den each and every week. So, yes, this one here is pre-recorded, unlike the other times when we do it live. I wanted to make sure that I at least deliver on this promise. So, welcome, welcome, welcome to the Lions Den. I'm in a secret location. Um, because I had to get away from the noise. I literally just walked in from work. And so there's some things that we're going to be doing with the family that I want to make sure that I'm intentional about prioritizing a priority without omitting the things that I said I was going to do. So welcome to the Lion's Den. No, this is not live, but I promise you I am watching along with you right now. Yes, again, it's pre-recorded, right? I am watching along with you, but at the same time, I am looking at your comments. I'm looking at um your questions and so forth in the chat. So welcome to the Lions Den, family. Welcome to the Lions Den. Let me do this just so I can bring your awareness to what the Lions Den is all about, right? Remember, the Lions Den is a community. I'm looking over here. The Lions Den is a community where we become everything that God has created us to be. And sometimes that is very, very uncomfortable, but it's necessary in order for us to be who God has destined us to be. So, with that being said, let's get right into what it is that we are here for today. What we're going to talk about today is a couple things. I'm going to merge two chapters, but we are going to talk about number one, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'll say it again. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then we're also going to be talking about how to develop your boldness, how to develop the boldness in life to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I'm going to get right into this, and I want to draw your attention to a scripture. As a matter of fact, I'm looking over here because I want to make sure that this is showing for you. All right, so I want to draw your attention to a scripture that comes from James chapter 1 verses 2 through 4, and it says this, and this is coming from an NIV version. It says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kind, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. The King James Version says it a little different. It says, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect, entire, wanting nothing. Okay. Now, the reason that I wanted to bring this scripture to the forefront is because many times, and I'll speak for myself, right? Many times when opposition presented itself, I was the type of person that will run from it. It was very uncomfortable for me to be involved in uncomfortable situations. But then I came across the scripture again, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect, entire, wanting nothing. In other words, when I read that principle, when I read that scripture, it tells me to get excited. This is how I process, right? Get excited when you get into the situation, when you bumping your head or attempting or being challenged with opposition. Get excited about the opposition, because the opposition is your level of comfort, meaning that when you are faced with opposition, it's a clear indication that you have an opportunity for growth here, right? So get excited about it. Now, here's what was interesting. If you read the book, there's a book that I'm sorry, there's not a book. It's my book. Listen, The Lion's Den, right? If you read the book, let me put this up for you guys real quick. If you read the book, if you haven't read the book, make sure you get a copy of it, right? MikeLewis.com, MikeLewisInc.com/hear the roar. But if you read the book, there's a chapter here that's talking about boldness. And the boldness that I'm talking about is the boldness to become everything that God has created you to be, right? Now, I'm going to pivot for a second, because in my other book, Cultivating Potential Within Purpose, there is a chapter again on boldness, and it comes directly from the movie The Lion King. And some of you guys may know The Lion King, the animated version that was here, a couple years ago. The one that I'm speaking from came from the Lion's Den like 20 plus years ago, right? I was watching this movie. I was watching The Lion King with my children at the time, and there was so many principles that was jumping out at me that I've never ever seen before, as I was watching this movie. And one of them was a scene, and you guys may remember this. Let me pull this off real quick. One of them was the scene where this was after Mufasa basically died due to the stampede that Scar basically set him up with, right? And this was after that. So it was during the time that Simba was looking for um his identity. He was trying to discover who he was. And there was a scene when he was running out in the field, and or no, I'm sorry, not running out at the field. He was at the pond, he was at the lake, and he began to see the reflection of his father. And shortly after that, the clouds and everything began to come in, and it started to rumble and lightning and all of this stuff. And Mufasa said something to him that I never ever forgot. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And here's what he said. Here's what he said to Simba. He says, Simba, you are more than what you've become. And I'm going to pass that same message on to you here in the Lion's Den. You are more than what you've become. However, you've allowed the circumstances that was uncomfortable to make you be comfortable in the complacency, right? You are more than what you have become. So the question is, how do you become more than what you've become? We're going to dig into that later. But how do you become more than what you've become? Okay. Now, there is a quote. And again, I'm looking back and forth here, right? There is a quote by A.R. Bernard that said, "Excuses are crutches for the uncommitted." Okay. Excuses are crutches for the uncommitted. So many times we are faced with a decision where we have to commit to some things, right? And when you commit to some things, that means that you're all in. It doesn't matter what it looked like. Yes, you make calculated risk, but it doesn't matter what it looks like. You are all in. The individual that make excuses are the ones that's not committed. And so what do you do in order to break through this uncomfortable season in your life? You have to decide that you're going to break through. The lions are waiting on you. Remember, we talked about this last week. If you didn't see the podcast from last week, go back and watch that, because I literally showed you how to, when that lion is chasing you in that den because he smells fear on you, I talked about how to break through that, right? But it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be extremely uncomfortable for you to break through if you are looking to be comfortable. Are you? I really hope that this is resonating, right? When you are looking for the uncomfortable situation to be comfortable, then you are setting yourself up to become a full course meal for the lion. He smells that fear on you, right? What is it that you need to break through in order to step into the greatness that is actually set in place for you? So you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Okay. In order for you to be uncomfortable, you have to decide that you are going to break through. Proverbs 28 verse 1 says, the wicked flees when no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Now, why is this important? Why is this important? Because if you are living a righteous life, then you have every reason in humility to walk in boldness. You have every reason to walk in boldness. Why? Because you know, in your righteousness, in your righteous walk with Him, you are being obedient to the purpose in His plan. So, as long as you're obedient to His purpose and His plan, you can walk boldly and confidently knowing that He has your back, right? That in and of itself eliminates the need for validation. God has already validated you, right? And so that's uncomfortable, but at the same time, it feeds the boldness that you need. Okay. Um, let me say this. Let me say this. I want to make sure. Let me make sure you really get this. You really get this. Okay. I remember years ago, I was faced with a decision. And honestly, the decision, and again, I'm looking over here just so I can make sure this comes across to you, okay? But I was faced with a decision that when I had to sink or swim, when I had to sink or swim, I had to make a decision that I was going to do what God called me to do. Now, that came with some uncomfortable decisions, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. But what I didn't understand is, why did it seem like everything was falling apart? Why did it seem like, even though I made a decision, everything was falling apart around me? And here's what I began to understand. Yes, there were decisions that I made that contributed to things falling apart, but here's what changed everything for me. And let me make sure that I have this lined up for you. Okay, here's what changed everything for me. Here was the principle. I begin to understand that God allows what you allow. Now, some of you guys may look at this and you be like, man, that doesn't make sense. Well, let me help you understand something. God would not override the will of man. And as long as he would not override the will of man, he will allow you to make a decision with or without him. Now, it's best to make a decision that's in alignment with his word, but he will allow what you allow. So if you allow circumstances to overtake you, because he will not override your will, he will allow what you allow. Now, it's not in his plan for you to suffer, but he will allow what you allow. I know some of y'all looking like that doesn't make sense, and that's not fair. It's not about it being fair, it's about him being a just God. He will allow what you allow. So if you allow poverty, he's going to allow poverty. Again, it's not his will, but he will allow it if you allow it. Okay. If you allow sickness, he will allow sickness. Why? Because he's established his order. He's established you to be a king in the earth, and you decide how your life is going to pan out. Now, the script is written, but you can override the script. Oh man, don't miss this. The script is written for your life, but you can override the script with your tongue. Remember this. We talked about this in a few podcasts before. We said that life and death is in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. That means that what you speak out of your mouth on a consistent basis is what you create in your life. God allows what you allow. So if you speak poverty, God will allow poverty. If you speak sickness, God would allow sickness. It's his order. It's not his plan, it's his order for you to determine what happens here in the earth. And that is the part that most of us need to understand when it comes to boldness. I remember just recently my pastor was we were at our men's meeting. We were talking about some of the things that we're believing God for, and he made a statement because we talked about how I ran track and so forth, and he made a statement. He said, how many of us are actually in the blocks, ready to do what God has called us to do, but we're waiting on someone else to actually shoot the starter gun, not knowing that the gun is in our back pocket the whole time. You gotta chew on it. If you knew that the starting gun was in your back pocket the whole time, and you can pop off those blocks or pop out of those blocks at any time that you choose, how much longer would you wait? How much longer would you cower down instead of moving out in boldness in what you know you're supposed to be doing? If you are going to face the lions, if you're going to make it out of the lion's den, you, my friend, have got to be bold about it. Okay. You don't need the approval of anybody to be who God has called you to be. You don't. Okay. And so I want to help you do that. Now, we already 17 minutes in. So what I want to do again, for those of you, let me put this back up, okay? For those of you who have not gotten this book, stop waiting. Seriously, stop waiting on this book, okay? MikeLewisInc.com/, hear the roar. And all these principles are in here. And what I'm going to do, okay? What I'm going to do for the first I'm gonna say 5 people. Okay. For the first five people that comment below and say, hear the roar, then I am going to send you an autographed copy of the book. What I need you to do though, what I need you to do is I want you to send me a DM either in Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're seeing this, and I want you to show me a copy or a screenshot that you purchased the book, and I will send you a autographed copy of the book, and I will give you a free discovery call. I will give you a free discovery call because I want to see you make it out of this lion's den. All right. So I promised I was not going to be here before you long, and I want to make sure though that you guys have access to this information. All right. So with that being said, that's all for today. Okay. That's all for today. Because again, I want to make good on being intentional about prioritizing the priority. And my priority is God, my family, and purpose. Okay. So again, hopefully you got something out of that. I know it was quick and short. Go back and watch the replay. Again, step out in your boldness. Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. We're going to talk about this, okay? The endurance, the pathway of faith, the pathway of patience. We're going to talk about that. Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect, entire, wanting nothing. Wanting nothing. And remember that your excuses are only crutches for the uncommitted. If you are committed, then your excuses have no validation. You have to step out in boldness and you have to be who God has called you to be. How do you do that? You make a decision, number one, that you are more than what you become. Number two, you are going to have to move out on faith. And number three, you have to stop seeking validation from man to shoot the starter gun, because the gun is in your back pocket. All right. So with that being said, family, I am going to end it off for today. And hopefully this was value added to you. And with that, I will see you all next week. God bless y'all. Where's my slide? Where's my slide? Here we go. Love y'all. God bless.